Hey guys, it's NICOA done. We had a little bit of technical difficulties there. You are with me this beautiful Sunday morning. We were going live on the banks of Whiskey Creek. And I just want to say thank you for joining me. Thank you for all of you who've actually moved from the different platforms over to YouTube. So I hope you got your coffee. We've got our beautiful fire here. We had to change cameras, so that's why we were delayed. Hey there, I see people are now joining. I'm obviously squeezing into this camera. Let's talk about grief. Let's talk about good grief. Good grief. What in the world am I talking about? Well, I want you to know, I want to use the topic of grief today because I want us to recognize that it's okay to be in a space of grief and at the same time carry joy and celebration, and that these emotions that we experience day in and day out, when we have extreme feelings, emotions, remember, energy in motion, just reminding us what matters most to us. It reminds us what our values are. I had a friend pass away this past week, and I'm extremely sad that I lost her. I wasn't ready. And I have grieved, and I cried yesterday morning, these really fresh tears. They were different tears. They weren't ancient tears. They weren't sad tears of disappointment or overwhelm or not enoughness. They were tears of joy and regret that I couldn't see her one more time, that I wasn't ready. And in between those tears yesterday, as John held my hand and was with me through my grief, I also told the stories of joy about my sweet friend Christy. As a matter of fact, some of you may remember Christy. This is my favorite photo of her with me, happy, celebrating. And I pulled the photo up and I told the stories. And then I cried. And I was sad. And I remember I kept thinking, I wasn't ready. She was ready. She died from cancer, unfortunately, and she'd struggled with it for, I think, 4+ years. She was ready, but I wasn't. And so I was sad and I was grieving. And then yet I was laughing about the time she spent the night with me when I was 9 years old here at the Sound House. We celebrated my birthday, and she was a friend, and she loved me unconditionally. We just spoke last week on text. It was her birthday, and I was so grateful that she had the energy to reply. I held grief, and at the same time, I held joy for having had a life with her, a friendship with her, a love from her. That, you know what they say about grief, that it's love with no place to go. So I had all this love for her, and then she was gone, and what do I do with it, right? What do I do with it? I want to give you some other examples about grief and the emotion of it, and how it's okay to actually be in a space of what you want and yet still grieve what is no longer. So let me move to a personal example around my divorce. One of the things in my way of being, of my life by design, was that I wanted to be married and have kids and live happily ever after until death do us part, right? And yet I was ready for that 25-year relationship to change. It had to change for the both of us to grow and move on with what was meant to be for us in our lives. And I was ready for that to end so that we could step into the next phase. And yet I grieved it. I grieved the story. I grieved what I was attached to. I grieved what I thought was meant to be, was supposed to be. I watched This Is Us for months and lay in the bed and cried. But I wasn't supposed to go back. I didn't want to be in the relationship anymore, but I grieved the story that had to change. So one more fast forward, and the profound statement of my youngest child. I bought this house from my family, and that was the dream, right? I remember, I could see it in my mind. I observed myself dreaming about it. I could see my father sitting on the other side of the dining room table, handing me the keys, signing the documents, handing off this legacy of this beautiful, soulful property that I dreamed of owning to continue down the generations of our family. And I remember when I finally was able to buy the property and some young woman came to the house. I was alone. We met in my office. I remember I just moved back here and it was summertime and she was wearing a sundress and flip-flops. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, wow, it's really casual down here. It's a whole new way of being. It's completely different than when I lived up in the big city of Raleigh. And I watched her as we flipped through all the documents and I signed every page. And then I thanked her and I took her to the front door and she left and I shut the door and I turned around and my youngest daughter said to me, wow, Mom, you did it. You bought your family home just like you always dreamed of. And I burst into tears and I began to sob. And she said, Mom, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I said, it's just not the way it was supposed to be. It's not the way it was supposed to be. And from the words of children, out of the mouths of babes, as they say, she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, Mom, it wasn't the way it was supposed to be. It was the way it was meant to be. She was 13 years old when she said that to me. And I have never forgotten it. And although I had gotten what I wanted and the dream of what I had envisioned came true, my attachment to the way in which it was supposed to happen was different. And what I invite you to ponder today is that it was meant to be that way. And if I can let go of the attachment of what I wanted, the grief of my friend passing, what did I say? I wasn't ready. She was ready. It was time. It was what was meant to be. I wasn't ready. Your grief, your joy is always about you. And if you can hold it for what it is, it's just an emotion, energy in motion, reminding you what matters most to you, then you can allow all of the feels. All of the feels. So here's a toast of coffee to my sweet, beautiful, loving friend, Christy. May she rest in peace now. My love to her family and all of her friends who are my friends too. And to each of you, I send you off and invite you to notice what you're attached to about any outcome in your life. And if it doesn't work out like you thought it was supposed to, just remind yourself it was how it was meant to be. Hashtag Life by Design. Cheers. I'll talk to you guys later.